And
You can have mine, I'll look over there.
You didn't breathe on it.
I did. I don't know.
You stay sick.
It's not me, it's about the kid.
It's the kid. Yeah, she's drinking it. Allergy stuff.
Is that all of those? Did you give them to me?
We gave several. You can have mine.
We'll share his.
I ain't saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
We'll just share his.
And then those are extra.
Because no.
This is extra.
Is that extra?
This one right here, it's not a full.
Oh, okay.
You had no evidence.
I'll just,
guys, I created an agenda, and I'm gonna read it and ask for your approval. Okay, that's all I can do.
This guy's on meeting, save me.
I get two, just,
Okay.
Let me share with you on the left and the right. I just put down, open meeting, invocation, pledge, as advertised, budget, electric department discussion, adjournment. Gentlemen, we don't have a formal agenda, so I'm gonna ask you to adopt just this simple thing. Open the meeting, invocation, pledge, budget, electric department discussion, adjourn.
No. Israel as well. Do I need to make a motion?
I will ask for it. I'll go ahead and do the best I can with it.
Call
Until they get back.
we're just waiting on Susan, she's making a couple more copies.
She met.
She had to make a couple more copies.
Okay, we're good. Thank you. Is everyone ready? Is everyone ready?
Sure.
This special called meeting for the Richlands Town Council will now come to order. Before we move any further, I would like to read to you the public notice that was publicized, duly publicized. Special call meeting by council members Laura Malo, Sam White, and Rick Wood of the Richlands Town Council is scheduled for February 28th, 2023 from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Richlands Town Hall at 200 Washington Square, Richlands, Virginia. Topic discussion, budget, electric department, non-voting, signed by Heather Perry, interim town manager. At this time, before we move further, I would entertain a motion to adopt the following agenda. We don't have it, so I would appreciate it if you would write this down, please. Well, I'm going to ask for approval of this agenda. It's only an agenda. Okay. So I will ask, let me ask you to write this down, please. Open the meeting, which I have done. The invocation, the pledge, The discussion is budget electric department, which is a non-voting topic according to the advertised, and then we'll adjourn. Please write that down. If you have any questions, I'll read it again, okay?
I read it when you said it.
Okay, good deal, thank you. Jan, you got it all? Okay, you got it, Jordan? Rick, do you have it? Okay. Do you have it, Gary? Do you have it, okay. Is there a motion to adopt this agenda?
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion on the floor to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second.
There is a second to this motion. Rick makes the motion, Jordan seconds the motion. Is there any discussion on this motion? There being no discussion, I would ask for a roll call vote, please, Susan.
Doug,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Laura. Yes.
Thank you, members of council. This agenda has been adopted as we have presented it to each other and to the public. Thank you. Okay, so if you will please stand for an invocation. And please pardon me, I've had a feeling just about 10 minutes ago. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to be together tonight, to work in the spirit of cooperation with everyone here so we can achieve the best results for the town of Richlands. We're so appreciative of the opportunity to practice the democracy. We're appreciative of this beautiful day that we have, and we pray for your continued blessings. Thank you. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, members of council and members of the audience. Thank everyone for being here. I'd like to say thank you to Mike and Heather and Susan for coming, and thank you, Seth, for coming. So I will make just a general statement. Last week, Laura called me and told me that Laura and Jan and Vic were calling a special meeting, and that's absolutely their right to do so. And she told me she had invited Seth, welcome Seth. And so let us move forward. We have on the agenda budget, electric department, non-voting. It's a discussion. So in this case, I will ask Laura, Jan, and Rick to amplify what they would like to discuss, and we'll take it from there. Laura or Jan or Rick, who would like to explain that?
I don't mind to.
Please do.
Basically, in our last meeting, was asked by Councilman Ratliff. He had some questions regarding electric, and he asked to be able to get some information so that he could study some numbers, and this was just a mutually convenient time for everyone, and I felt like the public should see it and also council. So basically, this is an informational session for Councilman Ratliff or anyone else to get their questions answered regarding electric so we can move forward.
Thank you. Jan, would you like to add anything?
No, that's basically what we wanted to give everybody the opportunity to understand, the income and the what comes in, what goes out on the electrical system.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Rick, would you like to add anything?
That's what it's all.
So thank you, members of council. So without further ado, I will open this meeting for discussion. Who would like to open it with questions? Or Heather, I'll defer to you. Do you have anything you would like to elaborate on at this point as our interim manager?
I'll give you a breakdown of what I provided.
Okay.
Basically, what we have here is the budget report. It shows what our budget is for this current year that we're in now. And it'll
Excuse me, do you have copies for everyone?
Did not everybody get a copy?
We don't have it.
Oh, I thought
Oh,
they
they-
passed it around.
Oh, my bad. I thought I had 4 sheets. of
That's okay.
There you go. I have one request too. Is it possible to turn these lights on back here? It helps you to read.
Yes.
Are they out? Oh, sorry.
No, stop.
That not it? This one? Which one, Frank?
Which one?
Thank you.
There we
Thank you.
go.
It's easier to read, I think. Thank you, everyone, for your help. And always. I thought I had 4 different things. I was, man, you're going to study a whole lot. So thank you very much for your understanding. Thank you. Go ahead. We're fine.
Okay. So basically, this gives you a breakdown of, and every number that you see in red is actually revenue. It's not an expense on this page 1. And it gives you prior years to use as reference. So if you turn that over to page 2, this is basically all of your liabilities. And this is, shows you previous year's budget, the same thing we looked at last year during the budget. You weren't here, but it does give a list of approved budget by line for each line item, and this is the ones that provided today are only electric. And if you go on page 3, this gives you a breakdown of any shared resources. How their costs are shared for certain jobs throughout not just electric, but water, sewer as well. So utilities. And it also gives a breakdown on how it's shared for as any like IT or anything like that. Because IT, like if we buy a server or anything like that, that hits all departments, not just one. And then we have page 4. And this is basically a summary fund, and we're looking at this particular time only electric, and this one goes through July through December, so the first half of the fiscal year. And the red on this will mean negative.
Should we ask questions as we go along or at the end?
Probably let's have a review and then we'll go for questions.
Sure.
Okay, on page 5, and this is just a breakdown of the electric and what is charged as far as the shared resources from previously, just as postage and things like that. I mean, breakdown of salaries, benefits for certain positions. And it shows not only electric again, but electric, water, and sewer. And then basically, these are some expenses as far as electrical department only goes, all the way from July until December with a year to date on all of that.
That's July 2022 to December of 2022.
Yeah, this is just the first half of this fiscal year, or the end of calendar year, how you want to look at it.
Thank you.
Could we define red on each of these? I know that's cumbersome, but
Yes. Well, anything that the only time that
is it only the first page that's clear?
yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
So this is basically page 1 is the revenue, and any of our revenue will show up as negative because it hits the opposite side.
Thank you.
Heather,
And there was the last page says yearly budget summary by fund.
Yes, and basically, again, this is just a breakdown of each department's revenue versus expenditures in general fund, water, sewer, and electric, and it gives you the total for December.
Thank you. Okay. Heather, does that give us an overview?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to wait just a minute until Susan comes back for the minutes, maybe? And yeah, your questions will be next, okay? We certainly need a clerk right now. Thank you. Okay, Doug, question?
Heather, on these shared costs, the six,
What page are you
um,
Third page.
what page?
It's
What
just
was
easier for everybody to keep up.
What'd you say?
On the shared expenses, on 640,000 and so many dollars, does that include the expenses for its department also? Is that included, or the workers and that department are separate from these shared expenses?
The 640 at the top,
Yes.
that's a total. That's a total, and that would be from all departments all throughout town.
No, what I'm asking you, does that include the expenses for that one? I know you're saying it's shared by all departments, I know that. But within that $640,000, does that include the department itself? The expenses like the workers in that department, all the
So,
expenses?
It would include anything that's shared. So
So-
basically,
Okay, what are the expenses of that department? Because it's not in the $640,000. Their employees, I believe, are separate from this and all the expenses.
well, if
So I
you're
think-
looking at a particular department, you could look at electric.
So how much is it?
Right here is the total salaries and wages for electric on page 2. It is $235,452.37 for the year.
235?
235,452.37 for the year.
So you could add that 235,452 to the 640. So we're
No, you can't.
well, I mean, coming out
This
of that,
includes
coming
that.
out of that department.
No.
The 235 comes out of that department. Also, the 640 comes out of it.
That has nothing to do with that. That 640 is a total. That has nothing to do
I
with
know, but
electric.
isn't that an expense that you take solely out of the electric?
All the wages that are paid due to electric salary and wages, whether that is your sole job or you are the town manager on the shared cost source with 20% of your salary going to electric, will be included in the 235,452.37.
You're missing what I'm saying. Total, there's 235 within that department that you're using already.
No, that's what I'm telling you is no.
You're saying the 235,452 is included in that 640.
The 640 has nothing to do with
Yes, it
what you're
does.
saying.
It's coming out of the electric.
No, it is not. Show me what line item it's
I have
coming
a
out of.
question. Sorry, Matt. I think Seth wants to add something. He raised his hand. Seth, do you want to speak?
Yeah, because I know we've had this discussion before, but I think y'all are just misunderstanding each other. So what Doug's saying is the 239,452, that is just electrical employees. And we have how many, this part, salaries and wages, on this line item is just electrical employees. On the page 2.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And you have how many employees in the electrical department?
Four.
4 employees. So that's their salaries, Doug, for the year.
Right.
That's coming out of the main budget of electrical.
Right.
Now, the shared resources, which I know
Down
has always
bottom.
been
It's down.
that's always been a sticking point. But what this is, the total shared cost, so 640,000 is coming out of the electrical revenues to go towards shared resources. But what she's done is broke it down by each one. So for instance, IT, and what she was describing is 51,000, they bought new servers. So electrical's portion of that, this also comes out of other people's budget. It's not just the electrical department. It's shared resources.
Well, no. What I'm not sure. I understand what you're saying. You explained it exactly, but the $640,000 is my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong, Heather. Is coming straight out of the electric fund. Is
No.
that not correct?
That is not correct.
So where is it
Where's it
coming
coming
from?
from?
It's shared throughout the town.
That's not what we're asking. We're asking.
Well, if
where's
you
it
go to
coming
page
from?
5, it'll
that's
give
next
you an
page.
absolute breakdown of town manager salary, anything that you want to know, what was sent from that.
Let me ask the question another way, Heather. How much money do we take out yearly of the electric fund? How many dollars do you directly take from the electric fund and move it to the general budget from your shared expenses? Can you answer that?
Yes, I can. It's basically right here on page 5.
Page 5, Heather.
Heather, that number for page 5 is for December of 22.
Mm-hmm.
And does that not, is the 640 for the total shared cost, is that not where that all is coming from, is electrical fund?
640, no, it is not coming from the electrical fund.
So why do we, I don't think we should have this sheet there, because it's confusing.
No, that is
for electrical
basically a total of any kind of shared resources that we have
discussion. Okay,
and plan to have that year.
so what Doug's saying, and I get what he's saying, on page 5 then,
Mm-hmm.
so this, for instance, for December, only $13,445 came out of the electrical fund towards that cost of shared resources. Is that correct?
So for December, where are you at, on page 5?
Yeah, I'm on page 5. I'm looking down the electrical column.
Seth, would you hold that up so we can all make sure we're on the same page? Right here.
Yes.
With the yellow on.
Okay.
If you scroll, if you take your finger down the electrical column, it's 13,400, and that
Yes.
was for December.
That is for December.
Only.
Yes. And then 10.9 for water and 10.7 for sewer.
Okay, so I understand. I think I can back into this. So 640, 387 is the total amount for 1 year that is a shared expenses item. This is a revenue item that goes to pay for budgeting purposes. That 640,000 is a revenue item. Then a portion of that comes from electric, a portion from water, a portion from sewer. That's how that number is made up. So those are your 3 revenue pieces. So out of electric, water, and sewer, you can see the electrical part, Doug, and I'm sure Heather can print you this for an entire year.
It's down at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, columns, if you, on that, it's the first column. If you look at the top, it says electric, water, sewer, then a total. And if you just scroll all the way down to electric. So that for December was 13,445. Now I'm assuming, Heather, this is not is this an exact number every month?
But it changes.
Right.
Yeah.
So but you could run that same thing for 12 months for him and.
Well, I could run it for this half and all
Okay,
of
yeah,
last year.
and all of last year. And I think that's what he's asking is, out of this total share, because this is confusing, because I thought this whole number came out of electric too.
No.
But it doesn't. It's split between electric, water, and sewer.
That's right.
I understand.
Okay, can you give me a dollar amount that you've taken out, say in 2022, directly from the electric fund?
For 22?
Yeah.
What are you calling 22? This year?
2022.
It would only be from July to December.
That's what it is. I mean,
Okay,
this is
okay, yeah, to 22, 23, yeah, for a calendar year, yes.
Yep, it's on there.
How much is it?
Well, I mean, let me pull it up. I don't know if it gives the total right there.
I think this is just 1 month.
$60,427.
That is 1 month, but I think that it's.
How much you give them?
That's total expenses.
That's a total expense.
That's the total for that 1 month, 35,000.
What is the 60,427? Is that like, or just that part of
So
December?
that's on page 6.
Says December.
Well, that's
22.
revenue. That's not the same.
That's revenue, it's not gonna
That's
tell
not
you.
the same.
Okay.
And it doesn't break it
Oh.
out.
No, I think this is the report he's asking about. I think if you could just get the other
Yeah, I can.
5 months, then you can give him a
I
total
mean,
of what come out.
right. If it's only 13,000 a month, then 6 times that would only total 75,000. that you're saying, so you're saying that you only take out 150,000 a year from the electric fund, is that correct? I
She
mean,
said it can change each month, but if you base that, if you extrapolated the 13,000 over that,
well, I mean,
yeah, it'd be about 150,000.
is that what you suffice comes out of the electric fund?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's, all that came out, where does it come out of if if it's not that amount? Where does where do we transfer it out of, is what I'm asking.
Out of the electric fund,
Where?
straight, you're,
I
okay,
mean, show me what line item, and I'll be glad to look it up for everybody.
okay, what I'm going by, about 6 months ago, we had a slide for Blue Ridge. On that slide, and you can go back and look at it, it had $200 and some thousand coming from the electric fund for taxes. It had 589,000 a direct draw from the electric fund, not any other utility, but from the electric fund going directly to the budget. So right
For
there,
what?
it went into the general budget. That was
Why would
700.
Blue Ridge have anything to do with that?
You were doing a presentation, they were doing a future, what?
Well, I mean, I understand, okay, well, just show me where I'm taking it from, and I'll be glad to look for everybody.
Okay, look at your, I guess what we need to do is look at the books of the electric fund and the drawings and the draws. And you're taking, I mean, from that slide, you were taking $700,000 to $800,000
I didn't
directly
prepare
from the
that
electric
slide.
fund. It was on the slide.
I have a question.
Oh, Heather, I think
I have a question. Is that what you're,
I found
you
the-
found what he's talking about?
I found yes, the total is on this.
That's the total,
This
but
is
that's
the
the
total.
budgeted total.
Well, but also you can see what it was for
Yeah,
21 through 22.
yes, you can.
And that was,
What page you on, Seth?
I'm on this one. The one, I think it's page 2.
Okay.
And this was the total expenditures for the electrical department. If you go down to the bottom and it says transfer out for an admin expense, that's the shared cost.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was budgeted for the new year was $325,000. But if you look back at the exact past year, it was $259,760. And then,
I see that.
yes, and there's a
Everybody with
separate,
Seth on this? Everybody with him? Are you with him, Doug, on what we're talking about?
What line are you on?
I'm on the very bottom. If you go up from the bottom and you go over there's 2 columns on the right, Doug.
Right here,
You one that says previous 2021 to 2022, previous year.
Yeah.
All right, the very bottom says 7,243,000. That's total of expenses. You go up 2 columns, and that's transfer out admin expense, 259,760. And below that, there's a separate line item for IT expense, which must have been for that server payment, which is 16,874. Now this would have been
300 and some total is the total that gets sent to electric or shared resources when you add those.
And maybe clear on something. I'll go ahead and answer your question. I just want to be clear. What I'm looking at, make sure I'm on the same page as everything else. The 325 is what's approved, the approved budget for 2022, 2023.
So that,
And that would be, make sure I've got it. 325, 325,000 is transfer out for administration expenses. And then we had, just below that is 16,874 transferred out for expenses, which are IT.
so that totals $336,000 if you add those two together, right?
But that's a budgeted item, not an actual expense item.
But that's taken directly from the electrical department.
Well, that's what they budgeted, but we don't know those numbers yet.
Well-
Like, we know the one for December. We know what that was, which was
Yeah,
13,000.
But I've never seen a budget that didn't take at least that much or more. I mean, in government, that's what always happens. Okay, that's 336,000. Okay, you've got another 200 and some thousand that you tax the electric department. Is that correct?
What are you talking, which line item are you talking about?
Well, you don't have it on here, but you,
Well, I've got all the expenses.
okay, if you look at if you
I
got,
see it, Doug.
you see it?
Yeah, but that was the previous year. You all removed that. Council removed that this year. If you go down to line, I wish these were numbered, but if you go onto the left-hand column and it's almost 3/4 of the way down. It says payment in lieu of taxes. They only did that 1 year.
And it's,
What's
was
the
21, 22.
ledger number there, Seth?
Okay, the number, Rod, is 504400570050.
Yeah. Seth, that was the exception when we had the slide. On the slide, I don't know how these numbers come about, but there was 589,000 drawn. It was on the slide from the electric, so I don't know where these numbers came from. But we've asked them to remove that. That was the exception. Every year they tax it $200 and some thousand to keep the electric down. We asked them, and that was the exception, and they did remove it because we showed it also to them.
Yep, so that was the 200,000 payment in lieu of taxes. That is not in this year's budget, so that won't come out.
Right, but I'm sure it will come out next year unless we take it. I guess what my thing is that we're taking on the average, and which I would like, if Heather would do the last 5 years. Of course, you can't do it tonight. I'd like to see how many dollars that we have taken out of the electric fund, including the taxes, and moved it to the general fund. And if you look at that, on the average, if we had taken that $200 and some thousand, we would have taken close to 600,000 out of there. And if you look at shared expenses, that's doing 3/4 of the finance office's budget. You're saying like 15% here, 10%. That doesn't even add up. Because if you take 600,000 that you usually take out, it's usually more, which when you give me the 5 years, I'm sure it will show that. You're running the finance department mainly from the electric fund. Okay, when Shay and I and Jan White were on the budget, we're on the council about 10, 15 years ago, we stopped taking any money from the electric fund. And lo and behold, for 5 years, we never took a penny out of it, and Richlands did well. We didn't go into reserves or anything. We did that for 5 years. Then after that 5 years, the council changed and they began dipping into it again. And I'm just wondering, I think to me, the electric fund should be nonprofit because it's so important to people and it causes their electric rates to go sky high. And if we made it 5 years and had a good budget and all, why can't we do that again and not lean on the electric fund for all these expenses?
I understand your question. Thank you, Doug. Seth, pardon me. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Doug, I'm just looking back to this. So it looks like no money was taken out for shared expenses until the 2021 budget year. So it would have been July of 2020 to 21. That year, 274,800 round number there for the IT and for the administration.
Said, I don't know what this shows, but it's always been taken out since about 10 years ago.
And I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
all we got is this is
Well,
what the official budget records
well, the official, I've been on here 20 years, and I know how much has been taken out. Usually, it's $800,000 to $900,000 a year, and I think when they have when they have the audit, it's going to show that how much is taken out.
Right, but here's the good news, though. The good news is that there's no payment in lieu of taxes, and also, it's not Heather that decides what money's taken out. It's you all. So you all are getting ready to go into a budget cycle, and you all are going to vote on a budget, and you all are going to decide. It's not her fault. And I'm not saying you're saying that. I want you to know it's not, Heather's not over here with a pencil saying today, I'm going to take $500,000 out for the town. That's not how this works. The good news is you guys get to set the budget. So
I understand that, and what I'm doing, I'm not blaming Heather, I'm blaming the system, okay? That was put in.
But you guys are the system. We don't have to worry about it anymore.
May I interrupt? Heather nor any town manager is responsible for it. Council sets the budget. That's what I want to add. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and I was just saying that's the good part of this is that You guys are getting ready to enter into a budget cycle. And if you don't want to, if council as a whole doesn't want to take out the $325,000 for administrative expenses, you don't have to. Then you got to figure out where you're going to get that revenue from, which is fine. That's part of your budgeting cycle.
Yeah.
You know, but that's the good part of this is, and I just want everybody to see that from, you know, me studying this here, and this may not be accurate, and that's why you guys are having a forensic audit.
Right.
But based on what we have, I feel like the numbers that we have for this year are accurate. I feel like what we have for the last part of last year is accurate, you know, and I think, but going forward for your budget cycle, that's a good plan. If that's what you want to do, if that's what council agrees to, then you don't have to take that out.
I guess that's why I want to point it out.
Yeah.
So when council looks at the budget, we can maybe.
But you still have to pay those people, so
Yeah.
we're going to have.
I have a question.
Well, we paid them for 5 years without it. It's called a
No,
good
we
budget. It's called a good budget, and you look at all the budget factors, and you don't overspend.
Let me
That's what it's called.
interrupt everyone, please. I appreciate all of what people are saying. What I'm getting here, my impression is, when we have our budget work session, Doug, you don't want anything, am I understanding your position? If I'm wrong, please tell me. Your position is you do not want to have any transfers from the electric department.
Could I explain it?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
I'm trying to get it.
okay. If you look at Lebanon, if you look at Bluefield, you look at all the surrounding towns, they don't have an electric system that they can use as a piggy bank. They have to do a correct budget. They have to watch everything they spend and make sure every penny counts. What Reachlands has done for years, which the audit will show, is taking any amount of money that they want out of the electric fund, and they could spend. If we had to really think of a good budget without using it as a crutch, like Lebanon and all those other towns, I think we'd have a better budget,
Thank
and
you,
it'd help
Doug.
people.
I have another.
Mayor
I want to
Kirby.
share. Yeah, I'm going to ask because Doug has had very good questions. Seth is here as part of the electoral committee, I'm assuming, and his knowledge of it. And we have members of council who also might like to have their say. So I will start it here. Laura wants to speak. We need to have even time. And I also, Heather wants to speak, and as the interim manager, she certainly should be able to. I want to remind everybody, we advertise this till 6 o'clock. If we get a little bit beyond, it's okay, but I want to make sure we're accomplishing something. I see this as heading toward a budget work session. There's nothing specific that I know we can do tonight because we can't vote, it's just not a budget work session. So please understand, we're only discussing about concepts. Laura?
I just wanted to throw in that, you know, I don't think citizens or probably most of us in this room, I don't think anyone disagrees with the heart of what you're saying. And citizens have spoken in the last election. We've got basically a new council up here. And when we set this budget, I can't speak for anyone else, but we're gonna get rid of the wasteful spending. And if we want to, I mean, somebody had told me before, why don't you guys just make it easy and say, I'm gonna make a motion that nobody's gonna transfer anything out of that electric fund unless council approves. If we have to go that route, we'll go that route. I mean, but when we set this budget, that's coming up, like literally in the next couple weeks, I mean, I don't think any of us are gonna sit here and let things go out of control.
Okay, so thank you, Laura. Dan, is there something you would like to say? Whatever.
Do you have the reserve, do you have the reserves on here? It may be on here, I just haven't had an opportunity to go through all of them.
I don't think the reserves are on there.
What is the reserve?
I'll look.
Okay, well, she's doing that, and what else would you like to know?
Nothing, you know, it's fine.
She wants to know what the reserves are. Is Is that correct, Ann?
Yes.
Okay.
And I might have other questions, but I
Okay,
need
we'll
to
come
go
back.
through this.
I'm gonna go ahead. While you're looking, Heather, may I ask other council members, or you want to what? Let's go ahead and we'll proceed and see what happens here. Jordan, do you have any questions?
Sure. So is it economically viable for the electric to support itself only?
Well, I would not be able to remove those transfers out because without the direction of somebody from accounting, we can't just give away services, and that's a generally accepted accounting principle. As when you work for a company and you would share in the electric department don't have postage, they don't have postage machines, they don't draw up utility deals, they don't speak to customers about utilities, they handle nothing to do with paying with the utilities. Actually, you're just looking at one side. I would not be able to remove that or change it without someone coming in here and saying that I need to change it, because that's how that came about. Any other department will also get charged with servers and things of that nature that share in the same service, that use cell phones, that use internet, that use any services that's provided to the town as a whole. This is not something that is taken like, it came out of they base this on those people's job duties, and it's based on what is used. Anytime, what you're doing with the town, if you're not working for your department and you're working for another department, then, it gets charged to that department. We have somebody that reads meters, that person's entire wage and benefits gets charged to electric, water, and sewer. It isn't fair to charge it only to water and only to sewer, because those people then, it looks like our expenses are higher. These are generally accepted accounting principles that I will not remove in any job title I have without somebody coming in here telling me legally that is how to remove them. This is not something that I made up or somebody previously than me that made up. I don't have anything to do with or any knowledge of payment in lieu of taxes. Only thing I know of is when somebody does work according to their job title, which is electric, water, or sewer, then their wages gets charged to that department. It's only fair, and it's only the way I know that is acceptable.
Can I speak on that?
Just 1 second, Doug. I'm gonna go around, so everybody has a chance.
Well, I need to answer.
Just a minute, please, because everybody needs a chance, okay?
So in
And I
terms
want
of,
everybody to respect that. Jordan, were you finished?
no. So in terms of economic viability, I'm gonna say no. It's no different than if we outsourced every one of those services.
That's correct.
And it's probably a discount doing it in-house. So like economic, I would imagine, as opposed to if they pay someone to go read the meter and charge the general fund, that is cheaper than us hiring some third-party company to go read meters, for example.
We wouldn't be allowed, even if you hired somebody third party to read meters. What bill that we got, let's just say our bill is $10,000. That $10,000, if their only job and service to us was to read meters, their bill, $10,000 bill, is going to be charged. So 33.33% here, 33 here, whatever it is to make it even between any utilities that they're working for. I can't help that. That's the only acceptable way to do that.
May I ask one question on your question?
Please.
If we're gonna figure this out, we've got, what department is that person reading the meters?
Doug, please. We can't be out of order.
Well,
Wait,
could I address Jordan one thing?
No, not
What?
yet.
If we're gonna sort this out, we can't let somebody say something and not explain it why.
Yeah.
Because what he asked was, what department is that person reading the meter from? Is he in the electrical department?
He asked if we outsourced it.
No, I said, is that person in the electric department's reading those
The
meters?
person that's on there has their wages automatically hit all three funds.
But is he in the electrical department?
No, he's not in the electric department.
Okay, what I'm getting at, Jordan, in the electric department, they pay employees within that department, and their expenses are like $300 and some thousand already before they add the shared expenses. So it's each department, thing that they do within the electric department are already paid before it hits the shared, okay?
So we have different explanations. Is that right, Joe?
Well, we just have to explain, when someone makes a statement, I think we should get the right to say, is that really correct?
On the same topic,
Excuse me, we cannot be out of hand. It will not work. Everyone gets a chance. You will have your opportunity in due time. We will not have disorder in this room. Not yet, please. He asked a question. You're next.
Is this page out of the budget? It is, right?
we're gonna get off topic
That's
here.
okay.
People are gonna forget what we're saying.
Just a minute, please. What is your question?
That's out of the budget. Okay, that's all.
Gary, you have a question?
This is based on this year's budget halfway through?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, that was simple. Laura, it's your turn.
We've got to come up with something here, because even going through right here, now I'm pretty heated. That we're not being allowed to speak, and I know it's frustrating for him, and I'll call him out when he's going off too, but we've got to be allowed to ask these questions. That's why we're in here. How was this paid out of the shared expenses? Just for my understanding, I'm not grumping at you, I'm just, like, in prior years, 2018, 2019, they were taking town manager's salary, town attorney's salary. How was anybody else's salary, the shared expenses, how were they getting paid there? Where was that coming from there?
Where are you talking about?
Like on page 2 on the budget, going back to like prior year, July 2018 to 2019.
Yeah.
They had, instead of shared expenses, instead of the transfer out, you guys were billing town manager's salary and town attorney, right? Those were the only 2 salaries really coming out of electric. So where were the others coming in?
So before, the way it was done, it was hit individually accounts. There was no like one, this is just a simpler way to do it. And it shows you exactly. So before, in these years where, it has nothing down here, and then now it has nothing up here. So before, what it would do is each month, based on that spreadsheet that shows December, on page 5, someone would have to do a journal entry to go in there and take that month's bill or that person's salary for that month and hit each one of these, every single account number down through here that is shared to. So this is just a simpler way to do it.
So how do we see that on here? Like in
So-
prior year, 2018, 2019?
So you would have to go back to salary and wages. See, if you see in 2018 and 19, how that's more, see that? Okay, so that went down because we didn't include it in that line item. This is what we did when we did. Do you see what I'm saying?
So all of that was coming out of salaries and wages?
Well, not all of
instead
it. Like right here, any wages that was transferred. So if 30% was transferred from the town hall, it would hit that line item monthly.
Okay.
So now it's not doing that. So that's why it used to be more, and now it's less. And now it's just easier to put it down here where we can actually see the total amount and to do, less adjusting and less, it's just less work. I mean, this way it automatically hits the appropriate accounts.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So how much, like, for example, town attorney, I know that's moved, or town manager, because these are the 2 on here. Are we still paying town attorney out of?
The town
shared
attorney will hit
expenses?
everybody.
So how much, and let's say town manager, for example, because town attorney varies month to month depending on what they're doing. Town manager was averaging 17,000, 18,000 from what we can see on here. How much this past fiscal year did we take out of their for the town manager's salary.
So on the past fiscal year,
Laura, you mean 2022?
Mm-hmm.
well, that's the anticipated.
While she's looking at, can I add something to what you just said? I did, when they gave me the shared expense report, they had 20% for town managers, so much for each clerk and so forth. I did the math on that. If you got it, it comes out to about $90,000 shared expenses, but yet they're taking out like 500 and some thousand. But if you take their percentages, like 18 for the town manager, 5 for this clerk, 5 for that, on shared expenses in the finance department, it only comes out, if you figure it out, to around 90,000. Okay? And the thing that she was saying about legal, she didn't know if she could do this. I can give you the history of why it ended up that way. It'll take about 1 minute. When Shay and Jan and all of us were on, we were not taking a penny out of the electric fund. There was no such thing as a shared expense. The electric fund, there's nothing taken out. Tim Taylor come to me and he said, I need some money. Can I take $200,000 out of there for taxes? I said, no, I won't agree to that. Well, he went to the rest of the council and they agreed. So they voted $200,000 from taxes and live taxes. Next, when they got that, about a year or two later, the council decided, oh, that was easy money. They started taking $500,000 to $600,000 besides that. So what Heather is saying legally, that's not true. Tim Taylor did all this and decided all this. It had nothing to do with how legal it was or this or that. It was his decision, and past councils, as Seth said, it was their decision to take all this money out. It has nothing to do with going and asking if it's legal.
Well, in all fairness, Heather wasn't here when that happened.
Oh, I'm not blaming, I'm just telling you the history. I'm not blaming Heather. I'm just giving you the history of what happened, and I'm sure Jan remembers, Shay knows, all the old council members know 10 years ago what was going on.
That's incorrect.
I believe-
That is
Yeah,
absolutely
you wanna- go
incorrect
ahead.
because it was separated. It always happened. It just didn't have a line item like it does now.
No, it was not, we
Well, so they made more in 2018 and 19
the
than they do now.
council directed no money to be taken out of the electric
This isn't
fund.
taken out. They're working for the electrical fund. This is not taking
It is-
money out.
Heather,
I
it is
want to
taken.
suggest something. I believe Seth was wanting, Seth, you want to speak?
Yeah, the only thing I can say this is, I mean, it's clear in 2018, and I don't know what year Doug is talking about.
It's, when Shay was on, Jan, what years was that, Jan, that we had nothing taken out? Pardon? Yeah, 2010.
And maybe we could go back to that, but nobody here, we're not, we don't have the numbers for that. It doesn't even matter now.
Well, I was giving an example of how we could exist without robbing people
That's
and
not true
raising
though,
them.
because it didn't exist then.
It did.
Well, where did they get paid from? It's always been
We
that
did
way.
a good budget.
That's not true.
Do we have this data? Like, if we needed.
Maybe we can just get those numbers for Doug and
Yeah.
compare it to this so
Yeah.
that he can see that.
May I ask, do you remember, didn't we voted not to take any money out of the electric fund? For 5 years, there was none taken out, no shared, no nothing. Do you remember that?
I remember us voting on something, but I don't know, about taking out money, but I don't remember the exact.
Okay, we took zero. Do you remember, Shay, when you were on, we took no money, we
Shay, do
voted?
you want to come on up and sign in?
Do you remember, around 2010, were you on the, council?
Sage, pull up a chair. Is there a chair for him to sit with Seth?
And if you notice, if you look at those years, for those several years, we had the cheapest electric in the state. One of the cheapest.
While Shay's coming over, the only other thing I was wanting to mention to that is that I understand, and I think it is much simpler what they did in the 2020, 21. I think it's much more clear, than the way that they were doing it before of just adding it to the salaries. Now you know the exact amount that's coming out. And it's much simpler to do it that way. But the reality is, and I understand what Doug's saying, because and we can all sit here, but the building that you're sitting in was paid for with electrical funds. Is that not correct?
That's true. We want to add that it's before the boundary adjustment.
Yes, before the boundary.
And
That's
that
an-
was,
That's an important factor.
could I add one thing, Seth? That was a different time. Electricity was cheap. And it wasn't, all the green things weren't coming. Now it's a whole different world.
Right, but what I'm saying, my point with making that is I don't think that is, those things aren't happening. Like, there's not millions of dollars coming out of electrical fund to pay for buildings anymore. That's not happening. And I think the way that they're doing that, but Doug, and I know you don't understand this, and I understand what you're saying, but what Heather's trying to explain to you is, if we have an employee here who is taking in power bills, that's part of their job, that it is proper. There's nothing wrong with billing part of their salary against the electrical department.
Okay, if you add that up, what the percentage that Laura was talking about, that comes out, the percentage that the finance office is getting is like $90,000. I wouldn't be upset about 90, well, it's not good. I wouldn't like to take anything out.
But we're all one.
I would ask Shay, do you remember when we voted and we took nothing out of the electric fund and the electric system had one of the lowest rates in the state?
Listen, I don't remember the specifics of it. I know that the goal was that there would be no funds from the electrical fund going into the general fund. And I can remember when I sued the town, the deal that we ultimately worked out, and sadly it was just a gentleman's agreement, is that there would be a separate fund, a separate account, and the money from the electrical system would be used, for capital improvement, maintenance, salaries, expenses relating to the power, but not going into the general fund.
Exactly. That's what that council did. And there was no money going into it.
Well, the reason for that is that, you have a stream of income going into the general fund that the town is relying on, but only a portion of the town population is providing that stream.
I have a question. Thank you, Shay. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Doug, Laura, everyone. I have a question. For the upcoming budget, we should consider all these things so that if it is the desire of council to not have sharing, we would have to find out a way to pay these people. That's simple for me. Am I misunderstanding it?
I won't do that.
No, and I'm not suggesting that you do.
I can't do that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that. So I am suggesting that what we're doing, we're trying to help establish what we might want to do. I'll put that, I can't speak for the members of council.
Could I ask one question?
Just 1 second, please. Might want to do in our budget work session, which we haven't scheduled those yet. I'm sure they're working on those, scheduling those. Is that right, Heather? Thank you. Go ahead.
Heather, that's not your job. You say you won't do things and you won't do that. That's not your job, with all due respect. That's council. Council directs you and you work for council, and council is not going to ask you to do anything illegal. That's our job, to make the budget, and you're to carry it
No
out.
one's
You
setting
don't
up there as an
tell.
accountant. I mean, I have to
I know,
do
but
what
you-
I'm required to do.
So
And
Okay,
as soon as we
that's-
get,
Hold on. The first step that we'll do is get legal advice to see if we can do that, and if we can, you would do that, correct? If the state tells us, or whoever tells us, yes, legally, this is how you can do it, because he's making a good point about, I mean, the numbers are obviously off. You guys, I'm on AEP, so the town of Richlands, every time these people are getting high bills, Mr. Cook made a good point. They're paying for it. I'm not. I'm still getting the same services. And so is a couple other people up here. And it isn't right. We know we've got to fix it. So the first step, I would think, let's find out legally if we can stop the shared transfers, the shared expenses.
Possibly, Laura, it is illegal because Mr. Cook, brought it to court and felt it was illegal for part of the town to pay the expenses and the other not, and made an gentleman's agreement before he took on to further court, and they promised not to. Is that not correct?
Again, it was just a gentleman's agreement. I support the town. I love the town. This is my hometown. I want it to be healthy. But when you have a situation where only some of the people are bearing additional burden, when everybody's getting those services, there's a fundamental problem with that. And the court saw that. And after the court recognized that, that's when we were able to come to an agreement. And all that stuff's on record at the courthouse.
The
Thank you,
only
sir.
way that, Mayor, that you could do this, but what you're going to have to do is, you're going to have to hire an employee that works for the electrical department, that sits in this office and accepts electrical bills. Then you'll have to have one that works for the water department that accepts water bills. And then you'll have to have one that works for the sewer department that accepts sewer bills. That's crazy. That's why that they're doing this portion of it. It doesn't make any sense to do that. And if you have the people who work in the electrical department, they don't want to manage office personnel who are people who are collecting the bills.
I said,
I agree 100%.
I mean, that's not, I mean, to me,
Now, if you want to take out the town manager's salary, I think that's fine. If you want to say, let's remove the town manager's salary, let's remove the finance department's salary, and just pare that down, but you still have to pay for those line items.
if you had a director of the electric fund, they could direct that. What Bristol did, which I'd love to do, they separated their electric system from the town and put it on its own and had a director, and we wouldn't have this conversation about all the office people doing all the work and all that. They would have one person over it, and that was BVU.
But you understand the purpose of
No.
shared expenses.
Sure, if you do shared expenses, okay, say the town manager's getting 17,000 of his salary. Okay, if you add that up, Seth, and what they gave us and if you do the math, what Laura has over there and what they gave us, it comes to about $90,000 that we should give the finance department to run the electric fund. That's all. They can't defend, if you look at the percentage that each person is spending on the electric fund, they can't defend it if you do the math.
But it's all one, the electric department is the town. And I understand what you're saying. I don't think any money that shouldn't have to come out of here should come out of here.
Okay, you were saying just a minute, all those people should be paid. I'm telling you, the percent, we'll do it that way if the council wants. They gave you a percentage of like 17,000 a year is coming from the town manager. I think hers was, how much was hers? I don't know. If you add all that up, that's only 90,000. We're spending 600,000 or 700,000 where we should be spending 9. What you're saying, I agree with you. You know,
But
So-
can
Can I say something really quick? Just really quick. So are you asking for a cost analysis between shared service versus hiring independently for each department? Would that solve all this?
I'm what they gave us. They gave us a percentage, which Laura has a copy and I have a copy. Okay, if you want to do the study, get a copy of hers and say, okay, 17,000 for the town manager, 6,000 for her. Susan Witt, I don't know how much yours was.
But again, I'm not worried about anything that's past because that don't matter. What you guys need to focus on is the future. And what I'm saying though is what I hear you say is you don't think the meter reader, you don't think 30% of the meter reader salary should come from electric and 30 from water and 30
No,
from
the meter reader should be in the department, and most of
you
them are
have to have
paid.
3 meter
No,
readers.
no.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Okay, if you want, what I'm saying is, Seth, if you want shared expenses, go by what they gave us. And if you do the math, it's only about $90,000 that they're
And
attributing.
I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that. You guys get to create your own of the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
But
There
you
you
will
go.
have shared services. You are going
talking
to.
about the future.
Yeah, you're going to, for your next budget, you have to, and that's what we're here talking about, but you have to have some shared services.
Okay.
You don't have to, I'm not saying you have to pay the town manager
I'll give you an
salary,
example.
but you will have shared services.
I'll give you an example. Our last town manager, he attributed 4 hours a day that he was working on the electric fund, or electric system. Do you
Well,
really?
I don't believe that, but that doesn't matter, Doug, because that's what we're saying is, no, you can't, we could sit here and hash out everything that happened forever. That doesn't matter. You guys are getting ready to enter into a budget session, and as a council, just like what Shay was talking about, and I completely agree, is that everybody in town shouldn't be paying for services that they're not using. I'm good with that. I have no problem with that. But we have to read meters. We have to collect bills. There are certain things that need to be, and there's no point in hiring 3 meter readers. We can hire one person to do the job and split their money. You're going to I think you can reduce this number, but you will have shared services.
Okay, how do we address if we're illegal in what we're doing, which the court agreed on? Hidden Valley is not paying anything. I live in Hidden Valley, okay? I'm getting a free ride.
But
And I'm
that's
not
not
down
the
in
general
any,
fund.
yes, it does.
That doesn't go against what Shay's saying.
Yes,
If
it
I'm
does.
paying an employee and dividing his salary among the 3 departments that he works for, that's not challenging your general fund issue, is it, Shay?
No, and I was gonna say that the concept of shared expenses, from an economic standpoint, I'm not opposed to that. And the reason I'm not opposed to it is that, if you don't share the expenses, you're gonna have to hire new people. You're gonna have to add additional employees and compensation packages. And at the end of the day, that's not gonna make sense when you already have people who can share those functions. But I guess the issue, you have to make sure that the percentage or the allocation is reasonable. Like 4 hours a day, if you got a town manager who says he uses half of his time managing a power system, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. If it's true, that's a sad thing. If it's not true, it's a sad thing. If it is true, it's a sad thing because you've got a town manager spending half of his time managing a power company that there is no benefit to the town in having, except making sure that the town customers are paying and underwriting the town's functions. It's not a matter of taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for services they don't use. It's a matter of me paying for revenue so that Doug can get services without paying for it. That's the fundamental problem, and that's the problem that the court saw. And so the issue is if you can't get away from the fact that you've got to take money from the power system, then how do you avoid that fundamental problem? And if you can't deal with it effectively, then what are we doing in the business of buying and selling power? I mean, one of the issues is Richlands more expensive or less expensive than AEP? We've been asking that question for a long time. Nobody's ever really answered it because my view is that the town can buy and sell power cheaper than AEP, then we ought to be pushing that as an economic development point. And if we can't, then we need to do something about it because you're going to continue to see the migration of business and people out of this town if all it takes is moving to Claypool Hill to get cheaper power. So that it is, in my view, this issue with the power system that we're here on now, that is an existential threat to the long-term viability of this town.
Thank you, Shay. I have a thought.
One second. What you just mentioned, the only way we can avoid the illegality of Hidden Valley not paying, it's not their fault. I live in Hidden Valley. I'm not down on myself.
No.
But is to make it equal to AEP, and then there's no problem. That's the only way we can get around that being illegal, because nobody would be paying extra. Do you understand?
If you've got a taxpayer and they pay the same amount, adjusted for whatever their use is or whatever the value of their property is, if it costs the same amount for somebody that has to buy power from town to live in town and receive its services, the same amount that a citizen who is in Hidden Valley pays, there's not an issue. But
Right.
The challenge is how do you get that?
Well,
and I agree, the folks in Hidden Valley, most of them didn't ask to come into town.
Mhm.
They were happy with the situation that they had. Somebody thought it was a good idea that we need to bring Hidden Valley into the town, and they didn't take into consideration the fact that this town has been run by the power system.
The only way we can be legal, and I'm telling all of council, is to not charge 1 penny more than AEP, then we're legal. But if we charge 1 penny over, then our system is illegal.
The big problem with that is the power cost adjustment, because we just got, in our last council packet, we all saw $1.2 million electric bill that this town had to pay, but electric collections were less than 50% of that. That means the town is gonna eat that cost. We can't.
No,
Here, AEP, he's right, this is the biggest threat facing this town right now. And the
Laura,
shared costs aren't making the
May I-
big difference.
may I explain that?
You
Okay,
can, but I've got one more question
Okay.
for you before I forget. I wasn't here, and I don't know, how did you guys use the electric money to pay for town hall? If we're sitting here arguing about money coming in and out of,
that was
The
a long
electric
time
fund?
ago when electric rates were cheap, and it was before the green thing came. Okay, and what you're saying, that led to the town is gonna get a windfall of money when they collect those bills. What you're seeing is only that month. That other, when that 11 million come, or what you're talking about will be next month. I assure you, we're buying power for a little 6.5 to 7 cents at the most. And you're selling it for 12 or 13. They got a big bill. That's coming later, when later they'll get that windfall of money next month when the bills go out.
we might be buying it for that, but then the transmission cost is killing us. I don't know, I mean, again, I wasn't here, I wasn't even living in town at the time. I grew up here, and I remember when I was little, I remember my family having conversations about how much cheaper town electric was.
Right.
I don't know what happened
That's
between
when
then and now.
That's when
But-
that's when Shay, Jan, and I were on, and we stopped taking any money out. Okay?
But you guys took money out to pay for town hall. am I
No, but
wrong?
no, not then. That was after town hall. This
So-
was 2010.
So how, if we're not supposed to be taking any money out of electric, how was town hall paid for with electric money?
That was before we stopped it. We stopped it in 2010
I mean, I get you saying you stopped doing it, but how did you do it?
because
At all.
we had a good budget. We made a good budget. We didn't
I
overspend.
get that,
Well, she's
I'm
saying if
asking.
it's illegal to do it today, it was illegal to do it then.
That,
Okay, we
exactly.
stopped it. That's why we stopped it when Shay was on. In that court case with the gentleman's agreement, as he said, we stopped taking any of it out. And I'll tell you, about 3 years ago, we had 1.2 reserve. You notice we can't get the reserve? Okay, do you know what it is now? After, at least, about 6 months ago, it was 2.2 million. We came up from 1.2 to 1.5 to 2.2, and I'd say I'm wondering why we can't get it now because I've asked for it. That reserve is going up. So I assure you, the electric system isn't going broke. It makes about close to $1 million a year if you look at it. I've looked at
You're
it.
pretty close on the reserve because I asked her recently and she sent it to me in an email. You're pretty close on it.
Mhm.
We've actually got about 4, I mean, don't quote me on this, she'll tell us exactly when she comes back. It's closer to 4.
Well,
give
2
or
of that
take,
is
but
restricted.
2 is
Yeah.
restricted.
Okay, I guess what I'm asking you, as a council member, how is the electric system in trouble when it goes from, let's give it one, I know it was a 1.2 to 1.5 about 3 years ago. How are we growing that reserve and we're not making any money? I mean,
I have a question.
Yeah.
First, I appreciate everybody's questions and comments. For those who do not know, I appointed, the council voted in the fall to have an electric committee. And I guess it was in January, I appointed Seth and Shay as citizen members, and Doug is the chairman of the committee, and Jordan is also serving on the committee. And in order to move ahead in a productive way, would council be amenable to asking this committee to meet as a committee as well as in public? And they, before our next meeting, certainly before budget, and I'm asking you, Doug, as the chairman, and Seth and Shay and Jordan as members, would you be able to come up? It's a lot of work, but I know you don't mind it, and I appreciate it, with your recommendations to council, knowing these recommendations are entirely up to council. Is that something that you would consider doing, gentlemen?
Yes.
I think it might be, and ask council's input, would it be additionally productive to what we're doing right now?
I think so.
So, Doug, you're the chairperson. Would you undertake that task to meet and call a meeting? Probably should be here at the town hall, of course, with Seth and Shay and Jordan of the electric department, electric committee. And as I understand it, the point of it is from a council point of view and citizen point of view, and we have two gentlemen here who are very, very well versed in it, to help sort these questions out in a forum that is where you can sort it out maybe in a better way. That's a suggestion, so I will ask for that to be happening. Shay?
I think that when we do meet, I would like for the town attorney to be present, because so much of our discussion is driven by presently existing contracts. And we can say, you know, we want to get rid of the power system, but we got contracts. We're bound to that. And you know, there are going to be implications. And I would like for him to be present, because we may have some questions that we want him to look at.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. We have contracts that we must honor.
Yes.
Mike, based on a mutually convenient time, where everybody works here, I'm sure. If I would ask Doug to facilitate that as the chairperson. I appointed him to be the chairman. Doug, would you facilitate a mutually convenient time for all of you gentlemen? And realizing that we're paying for his services, and we're glad to do that, but I want everybody to know, when we talk about expenses, this is something we owe you.
I don't mind to meet at his office.
I suggest we meet here in the town
Okay.
hall, it's town business. Okay, is that acceptable?
I think that just needs to come as a consensus of council that if I'm gonna spend time on that, you all understand that if the bill goes up, then that's.
I wanted to be public about this because they do bill us and we understand that. Everybody has to make a living. We get that. So I just want to be clear in the public eye what I'm proposing. So Doug, will you facilitate a meeting?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
And you will get with Mike and Seth and Shay and Jordan. Are you able to contact all these people? Okay.
Could I ask for one
And Jordan
thing?
has a question.
Can we have source data before this meeting? Would that be possible?
What do you need?
Just like essentially this, but in an Excel sheet, even like as far back as you can go. Is that possible? Within reason, within
No.
reason? Okay.
I mean, you can come and you can look at it. We've got books. I don't care to give you entire books of it.
Okay.
But printing it out for everybody, getting it ready in an acceptable format would be very difficult.
Jordan, are you okay with that?
I mean, I don't care if somebody wanted to come and look at them. You can pick up the book. I mean, I've gave them to people before. I mean, Laura's asked for stuff, and I'm like, I just really don't have time. Here you go.
Okay.
I don't care to do that, but I just can't ready a packet for this committee and everything else.
So it's not stored like in a digital.
No,
Okay.
no,
That
no,
makes
no,
more
no.
sense.
Can
Okay,
you,
Jordan, are you okay with that?
That's fine.
can you give us
We
a
have years
balance?
of books, basically.
But I could come get it and do it myself.
Absolutely, you
Okay.
can make copies of it,
Okay.
take pictures of it. I mean, it's not like it's hidden information.
Is there no way you could do a 5-year balance? I mean,
It's right there.
that's months.
That's years. It's expenses and budget for.
Could you give us how much has been taken out the last 5 years per year?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
How much money
Each
has been?
transfer out is what he's saying.
So basically, before I came, I know that's how it was done. I don't know, I know it was hit individually accounts. There's not a separate line item for it. So you can think of all of these numbers to the side like checking accounts. So you can go back at each one of these numbers and look and see anything that has hit that particular account number. These are all basically like little checking account numbers. So I can tell you exactly what has happened in any of these account numbers over here to the side. But as far as without a particular fund, which didn't happen until here, I couldn't tell you exactly how they split that up. It was split up based on what they were told at the
Well,
time.
what I don't understand, when we had the slides, It was directly.
Do you have that slide that you keep referring to?
No, you had it, and
I didn't have it, I didn't correct it.
well, Frank.
I have a copy of, I don't have it with me, I can pull it up on my phone, cause I put it on Facebook.
Okay, well, I have no
put-
idea what you're talking about, so
I
I
have
would
a
have to see
suggestion.
it.
Ladies
I
and
don't
gentlemen,
know if what he's saying is accurate, but I do have the slide.
ladies and gentlemen, what I would suggest, Laura, you have what Doug's talking about. Maybe you could share it with everybody in this electoral committee, and
Could
would
you
take
give me a
that-
copy of it?
Yep, she will do that. Yeah, I think you would be very generous with that and share with Seth and Shay and Jordan. So I would ask that be discussed in the committee. Okay?
Yes, sir.
I do have a
any-
quick
Yes,
question.
yes.
He brought up a good point.
That's the one.
The electric, I mean, that for 3 years, they say here in the back and forth of it's making money, it's losing money, making money. The unreserved cash reserves, how has that been growing if the electric is losing money?
Okay, so basically, when you look at this right here, this is basically this, are you talking about down here at the bottom where it says July, August, September, whatever, unreserved and reserved?
Yeah, the electric cash balance.
So unreserved is just basically, or designated reserve, or it's money that we have in there we cannot spend.
Mhm.
It's required by law, we have to have that amount. And the unreserved amount is amounts that we don't necessarily have to claim, it's better to have more, if your equipment breaks and whatever else, because anything electric.
I guess that's what you're asking. How's that unrestricted reserve keep
Did
growing?
Shay have to leave, I guess? I mean, Seth have to leave? Okay, just making sure.
Okay, so basically, it'll depend on what month it is if you look. So it depends on like the cost.
If you look back, Heather, about 3-4 years ago, it's by law we had to have like 1.2, 1.5. It was 1.7. Okay, they raised it, but it wasn't 1.2. We had a reserve of 1.2 to 1.3 a few years ago. Now we have a reserve of what, 2.7? Okay, if
That's
we
in December.
okay, that don't fluctuate. It don't fluctuate $1 million something monthly.
No.
That grew over a period of time, over 3 to 4 years. So that tells me that we didn't need all those electric increases if we're growing our reserve like 800,000-900,000 average each year. We're just getting rich and taking it from the people
Well,
and
it doesn't
raising
look like
them.
you're getting rich because right here it shows your revenue minus your expenditures for electric and the net gain and loss. We lost $83,766.
That was 1 month. I'm talking about reserves.
I have a question, Doug and everybody. Would it be prudent, and I'm asking the members of this committee as well as council, these questions are relevant, particularly when it comes to reserves as it might relate to electricity and what we're making. That's where the topic is, electricity. Laura, I think you were headed there, asking how could the reserves grow versus what we hear, that we're losing money on electricity. Am I understanding your question?
Mhm. And I'm talking specifically about electric.
Okay.
It just on average, in the math in my head is growing about 30,000 each month. July, August, September, October, November, December. So how are we
Basically,
banking
it'll
30
depend on what your budget is for electric. So like right now, what happened is we had no idea that winter storm came. Okay, so everybody in the world is paying more for power. It costs more because we had to buy it at a higher cost that wasn't
To buy
anticipated.
off the market.
Yeah, well, no, but like it's not anticipated. The cost was trickled down to us, but we can't raise a customer's rates because of that.
Right. Rates
Because
and separate ordinance.
right, that's something separate. So like when you see that variation, like we might have paid out $1 million+ for the power bill we got. We didn't bill that out because we ended up paying more for our power than we are able to bill for that. So that's why you see the variation. So like if you see, like one month we're doing better and the next month we might not be doing good, steadily we should be growing, especially anytime that you don't have anything major like that happen. One year we had an excessive heat during a different month. It depends on when that happens, what they call peaking. We're gonna pay way more for that power. We can't pass those costs along to the citizens of the town that pays for electric. We have to eat that. We can't necessarily sit here and tell you as best, I mean, you know, I didn't know that huge storm was gonna happen. I mean, nobody knew that. Things like that, we just don't know, and it's based on trends, market trends, is when they decide what months you know, sometimes you peak in the winter, sometimes you might peak in the summer, and like for cooling. So that's why you have the variation and why it's not overall growing, you know, if that makes sense. It's not overall growing.
What
what
Laura
happened-
was saying is over a 5-year period. We're not talking ups and downs or anything. We're talking, or she is talking over a 5-year period. It's grown.
It's 5 months.
Well, if you look at a 5-year, it's no ups and downs. It's an average. If you look at a 5-year period, it's grown by millions, over $1 million.
So can I ask a quick
Yeah.
question? Is this a percentage that we withdraw from something, or is it a dollar amount that goes into these reserves? Is it percentage or dollar?
Well, it's a percentage.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. All I
It
need
can't
to-
be like a dollar amount.
Yeah.
Because like, well, so like here, it was 2.8, here it's 2.5, 2.6, 2.6, 2.6,
Yeah.
2.7.
Mhm.
So this is unreserved.
Mhm.
This is what we have to go on when we have things break and things like that. You should have enough in your reserves to last you 3 years.
Of course, of course.
No different than if you were, if you were by yourself.
Of course,
You should
yeah.
plan,
Of course.
if you were to be without funds
Mhm.
for 3 years.
An emergency fund.
That makes
Mhm.
sense.
So when you have the electric
Mhm.
department, obviously everything to do with that is costly.
So who sets this percentage? It has to be
So
someone.
this right here is set by the
Well, whoever
state,
does it is to control the ebbs and
And
flows.
so basically any money that goes in there, we have to take that 1.7 out. We have to maintain that in order to be compliant. So the other is anything other is called unreserved.
Okay.
But that would have to be any cost.
If you
We
notice,
could never dip into that.
Of course.
if you notice, we have to have 1.7. That's set.
Yeah.
But
Right.
we've got $1 million over that, yet we're still raising rates.
That's why I want to know, like, who sets this number. If it's someone who's
Uh,
analyzing these market trends on the commodity
Blue
market,
Ridge.
I trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those,
Yeah.
I trust whoever's doing this to account for the
Yeah.
peaks that we can't predict. It's like you're saying, we're
I guess
accounting for
what I'm
uncertainty.
saying, as long as we've got a reserve that they require, why are we still raising rates on these people? You know, we should keep our reserve what we have to 1.7, and we not let that reserve grow. Counting unrestricted funds, we've got over $4 million in that fund, yet we're raising rates.
Yeah, I can't attest to that. I mean, I can't say if that's right or wrong, but I would have to look at the actuarial models to be like,
Well,
is
actually,
this safe or not?
they would suggest you have twice your required
Yep.
in that.
I would want to see those numbers as well, but I could see that. I assume it's an actuarial table.
Yes.
Yep.
So if whatever your required reserve is, they suggest they can't enforce it like they can enforce
Of
that.
course, of course.
That you have 1.7 times 2,
Okay.
and that is not what we even have.
So if we got to that, could we pull back, or is this percentage set for life?
No, it changes. Like it'll change. Like it was lower. It was 1.5. I think Doug said that.
Well-
Now it's 1.7. You know, your reserves, and I would assume it's probably going to go up. And I don't know that just because everything's
Inflation, of
Well,
course.
can I ask a question? If we're so particular on having so many reserves in the electric, why aren't we particular in our budget? Why do we run a budget over the years that we had millions in
I don't know
reserves,
what you all did
and
in the
now-
budgets over the
and
years.
now we're $500,000 in the hole? We don't seem to care much about our general budget, but we're really particular about that electric. That
Well,
doesn't
no,
make a lot of
that's not,
sense.
that's not, people, I mean, the budget's set by council.
I know, that's what I'm saying. If,
Were you not here the
okay,
last 20
yeah,
years?
but I don't see you defending, coming in here in the
I
budget,
simply
defending
answered
the
a
general
question.
budget. But you
Anybody
really
that has
defend,
anything
you
to do
really
with
defend the
people that
electric
work up here
fund.
go by
I
auditor's
wish,
requirements.
I wish you had as much respect for our general budget as
excuse
you
me.
do our electric fund. That would
I
make
need to-
my days.
We need to stay on the topic of personalities or criticism like that is personal. I think we need to stay on electricity. Not
Mayor, I
here
would-
so much.
Well, I was
I've got a
Fine.
big excuse,
I need-
thank you,
I would suggest where this
Kevin,
was
thank you.
thank you.
said until 6 o'clock, we've gone.
We've gone beyond. So I've asked that Doug facilitate the meeting with the electrical department. And Doug, I think it'd be prudent to also let Heather know when this is going to be.
Sure.
And at this time, if there's no further discussion on electricity, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Rick makes the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Jordan second. Is there any discussion on this motion to adjourn? Any discussion?
I mean, there's really not a lot we can do without the town manager. I mean, if it were up to me, we'd be back in here tomorrow. I've enjoyed the conversation. And Mr. Cook is correct. This is the largest thing plaguing this town. And I kind of feel like we're dragging our feet and I don't want to see that. And I'll vote no.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to adjourn, made by Rick, seconded by Jordan. Is there any further discussion on this motion to adjourn?
what was your statement, Laura? I'm sorry.
I said that I enjoyed this conversation and I will vote no to adjourn because I would sit in here all night. I think that we need to take this more seriously. I think if we need to be in here once a week, this has got to be solved. And we're going to drag our feet until 4 years go by and here we are sitting here again. This is a big deal.
I agree, I vote no.
Well, I haven't called for the vote. Yes,
My recommendation on that is just because the advertisement for the meeting was from 5 to 6. And it seems like it's kind of given to the electrical department. So the only reason I had made that suggestion was because the advertisement was set for 6. And
I
we've gone.
understand that.
okay. Well, I appreciate everybody's feelings. There being no further discussion, I will ask for a roll call vote, please.
Could, before you call for that, could we set another, what would you like done, Laura, as far as set another meeting for next week or?
I guess that the electrical committee's gonna have to meet,
Yes.
and I would think the council needs to meet probably immediately after
As
that.
soon as
And
possible.
whoever wants to, if. two
Could you
other
vote
people-
yes then if we do that?
I'll vote, I'm still gonna say no to adjourn, cause I would sit here all night and I've proven a point, but, whenever you guys meet on the electrical committee, I mean, if you guys wanna meet at 5 o'clock, council needs to be in here at 6, and I'll be here.
I think it should be a more informal meeting too, because, it was hard, you couldn't
Hard
really
to follow.
discuss anything tonight.
Mhm.
I agree, like a workshop.
Limiting us to an hour or so.
Yeah.
Well, let's remind that this is what was published.
Mhm.
I know.
I will
do
vote.
think it needs to be longer and more.
I will vote yes if we could do that, have a work session right after the electric committee meets, okay?
So we have just any further discussion on this motion before we take the vote? Anybody? Roll call vote, please, Susan.
Doug,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Laura, no.
Motion carries. Before we adjourn, I want to just say something, and this is my feeling. I don't think any of us up here care more about this town than anybody else. I think it's an equal love for this town. And so to just feel any thought that someone cares more, someone cares less, I don't think that's a good thing. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. I did. We just did it.